All right, so Ford sold 138,000 Broncos in 2024, and just by comparison here, it sold about 800,000 F150s. So right now, Ford has around 60,000 2024 F150s left over, but get this, it has 35,000 Broncos left over. I mentioned to my dad about this whole problem Ford is having moving the Broncos, and he asked me why. I said, I don't know. And he said, okay, ask AI. Why is Ford having so much trouble selling Broncos? So I took to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT was actually pretty spot on. It summed it up to three key factors. One was that there's tons of order backlog and long fulfillment times. Two, very high prices, not to mention markups on the in-stock ones. Three, a crowded and competitive segment with the Wrangler, Defender, 4Runner, and Land Cruiser, as well as this new Lexus GX. Imagine going from a 2-year wait list on a vehicle to all of a sudden having 35,000 leftover vehicles going into the new year. Ford's pileup of Broncos is mind-boggling because although they were treating buyers terribly when it was released during the pandemic, the thing is actually pretty cool and not even all too expensive. What's so wrong with it that there's a massive pileup of them at the dealerships? Well, there's also this fourth thing that ChatGPT left out, and I'll tell you what that is. The lease program sucked, and it sucked for a very, very long time until Ford actually woke up and realized it needs the random buyers. It needs those random people that only want a short-term thing with the Broncos so that it can fill in the gaps that the true Bronco fans can't fill up. When I went to recalculate a Bronco lease, I was actually pretty surprised to see that the lease payment went way down. And right now is a great opportunity to get them to discount pretty aggressively, regardless if you want to buy it or lease it. Upon even closer inspection, I actually think it's a better idea to buy it, even if your intention is to lease it, because it's got an insanely high residual value. So say if you bought it and kept the thing for like 2 or 3 years, you could potentially hold a decent chunk of the value instead of having to fork over the preset lease payment for 3 years and turn it in at the end. Now, this is kind of tricky just because we have no idea yet what the used Bronco market is going to be like in a few years and what the other manufacturers have up their sleeves, like we see with the Toyota and the Land Cruiser, the Lexus and the new GX, and who knows if the other brands decide to hop on board to start coming out with their own versions in this segment. What I want to do for you in this video is explain how to make negotiating the Ford Bronco way easier. We'll go over real-time sales and inventory data, the discount I would target off MSRP, current incentives and financing offers, purchase and lease payment estimates, resale value, and lastly, we'll pull this all together so I'll tell you as a car guy what I would do personally. All the supplemental data I'm going to go over in this video, as well as access to dealer pricing, is going to be available for you by clicking here or the link in the description below. Are you ready? Let's go. Now, although Ford has a pileup of Broncos, it actually has had its best sales year yet since the release of the Bronco. The Broncos sold a little bit more than 138,000 units this year, and that's up by about 7.5% over last year. Now, by comparison here, within the segment, and this is going to be a shocker actually, it missed first place by like 12,000 cars. The Wrangler took first with 151,000 units. Bronco was at second with 138,000, and the next closest was the 4Runner at 90,000 units. But the thing is, inventory is telling us a little bit of a different story. Ford currently has double the amount of 2024 Bronco inventory as Jeep does the Wrangler. However, in total, comparing Ford's 33,000 total Broncos, all of which 2024s, by the way, Jeep has 29,000 Wranglers, including their 2025s. There's pretty much no 4Runners compared to the 5,200 Land Cruisers that Toyota has. Now let's look at the different Broncos that are available. There's 5,300 two-doors in the country, so you're going to see primarily 4-doors with about 28,000 or so in stock. I would personally want a 4-door one too, because the 2-door one seems to be ultra impractical here. So very equal amounts of 4 cylinders and 6 cylinders, roughly 16 to 17,000 of each, trim by trim. And by the way, That's confusing in itself. So I'm sure a lot of buyers get lost in that too before they even go in to test drive. So what I'm going to do is condense it down to the most common 5. You're going to find 8,700 Outer Banks 4-wheel drives, 6,100 Wild Track, 6,900 Big Bend, 7,000 Badlands, and 3,800 Black Diamond. The one that I would personally choose is the Outer Banks because not only does it have the right amount of equipment that I'd want, it's also starting to exceed what I'd probably want to pay. But it's also because they have the most of these ones in stock on the lots. So the Bronco that I've got picked out is an Outer Banks 4-door 4x4 with an MSRP of $50,185. And I don't think that I've ever made a previous recommendation as far as what to target off the MSRP. But right now, my recommendation is to be a bit ridiculous, but in proportion to how much inventory your dealerships have. We've got quite a bunch near me, say like 1,000 or so within 100 miles. So let's say I should shoot for about 10% off of MSRP. But if you've got like 500, shoot for 10, but realize it's going to be a little bit harder. Targeting 10% off the MSRP gets us to a target selling price of $45,166. Here's where things get very irritating for buyers like me. In fact, probably losing people like me altogether. So, no promotional APR being offered by Ford. First problem I have right off the bat. However, right now Ford is offering buyers $3,000 in rebate if they purchase a Bronco, except the fact that it's only being offered pretty much on the Badlands. You can't get this rebate on the Outer Banks, the Black Diamond, and any of the other more expensive, desirable ones. For those trims, you only get $500. This is only available for buyers pretty much looking just at the Badlands models, and it's kind of annoying for anybody that's looking to get a little bit of equipment on their car. But if you've currently got a Jeep in the household, they are giving you $2,000 in a Jeep Conquest incentive. Now, I'm going to take that $500 into account, but say you financed the $45,166, applied the $500 rebate, got 4.9% at 60 months, and assuming you paid your state fees and dealer fees at signing, but you put nothing down except for just those fees, your payment should be about $856 a month, and your total 5-year cost, including interest and fees, is about $54,287. Now, KBB said earlier this year that in 5 years, the Bronco should only depreciate about 33%, and even Ford set its lease residual at 70% for 3 years. So many different authorities are weighing in, saying it's going to hold value very, very well. Car Edge, however, thinks it's only going to hold only 53%. So let's average all these out, and let's say it's about a residual value of about 60% for 5 years. In this case, this Bronco, hypothetically, potentially should be worth about $30,111, and the trade-in value should be more in line with around like $24,000. Now, for you lease customers, tell me in the comment section how you feel about the lease payment. It's got a 63% residual at 36 months and 12,000 miles a year, and a 5.52% APR on the lease. No rebates or dealer cash to be had. Plugging this all into the lease calculator, assuming we got 10% off MSRP, assuming we paid our inception fees due at start, and assuming you hit like and subscribe, we'd be talking about $540 a month, and that's not including tax. The total cost of the lease, including your estimated fees and say a 6.25% sales tax rate on the payment, is about $22,243. If you're curious what a much cheaper Bronco would lease out for, I think it's pretty safe to assume the AJE rule on this, where the lease payment should be about 1% of the MSRP, with 5% of the MSRP due at start. So in this case, it's probably about $2,000 for the fees and first payment, and then roughly around, say, if the car is $48,000, it's about $480 a month. What would I do personally? I think that although the lease payment is okay, it's not great, but it's not terrible either. The resale value is just incredible though, and I would actually gamble with it over the next 3 to 5 years, just trading it in whenever I please and not hoping for any sort of major equity or loss either way. All the data I've mentioned, as well as access to local dealer pricing and my cheat sheet, is available for you by clicking here or the links in the description below. If you'd like to book a quick call with me to discuss your situation, my schedule is in the description box below as well. If you found this information useful, please consider subscribing. Thank you so much for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.